Well, welcome to the September 16th, 2024 session of um, TAPR and HamSCI technical session. My name is Dave, KV0S, and this week I've been quite busy with TAPR things. Um, so we're going through uh, getting ready to have our annual board meeting in October. So, but this year it'll be a Zoom meeting. So that's about it for me. Next on the list is Nathaniel, W2NAF. Go ahead, Nathaniel.
Thanks, Dave. Well, I'm continuing to wait for my GRL paper, which is now under review, and it's actually in the hands of reviewers. So, uh, after doing a bunch of additional technical edits and word count reductions last week, it is in process. So hopefully that will go smoothly. And that's part of wrapping up the NASA Space Weather Operations to Research grant. I was on with Bill Engelke and Phil Erickson. And as part of that grant, Bill Engelke has worked with the MIT Haystack Observatory, and they now have all the PSK reporter, WhisperNet, and RBN data from 2009 up through 2020 posted to the Madrigal database. And they're also now working on getting 2021 and 2022 up there and finish wrapping that up. So that's all moving along. And now that that's starting to wrap up, and I'm starting to work on meeting with students about the other research projects, work with Majid a bit. He's working on getting the personal space, the Whisper Demon Grape system from my house back up and running. And he's putting up some stations at the University of Scranton too. So we're just continuing to get things moving along, and I think that's about it. Back to net.
Okay. Um, I need to get my list showing. Next on the list is Dave, KD0EAG. Go ahead, Dave.
Oh, not a lot of excitement here. Really just plugging away on various projects every day. That's it for me.
Okay. Next on the list is Jim, K4BSE. Go ahead, Jim.
I'm kind of like Dave, not a lot of exciting things. Spending a lot of my time on non-ham activities right now. Back to net, K4BSE.
Okay. Next on the list is Michael, AC0G. Go ahead, Michael.
Hello, everybody. Not much to report here either. Um, yeah, things seem pretty stable in sort of the maintenance of Whisper Demons stuff. Rob has things in a fairly stable state at this point. And uh, right now, things have been kind of quiet. Back to that.
Okay. Next on the list is Scott, N5TNL, and he's no Mike. And welcome, Scott. And then next we have Clint, KA7OEI. Go ahead, Clint.
Hi, not too much else. I am working on, Rob sent me two flaky 888s, and I'm going to see if I can make them into a different number of flaky 888s. Maybe
Yeah.
more,
Maybe,
or
maybe
one,
they could be 16, 16, 16s.
I don't know. Yeah, one of them has, you press on the FX3 chip, it works, and the other one goes deaf after a while of operation. So,
Oh, geez.
I mean, but we'll see how that goes. I'm going to do a reflow in a couple.
Frankenstein.
Well, no, I think this one just needs to have the BGA reflow done on it, and
Yes.
I have over there. I have a way to do it, so
Oh, very good.
2 minutes. Okay.
Okay. Next on the list is Dave Julian, WB9YIG. Go ahead, Dave.
Muted.
Oh, muted. Okay, next on the list would be Dave New, N8 SBE.
Yeah, I'm still maintaining my fly on the wall status, so nothing new here.
Okay. Well, you're always welcome to chime in.
Oh,
Next on the list is Dave McCaw. Go ahead, Dave.
Good evening, everyone. Not too much new to report. I was actually away in Seattle for the weekend for a nephew's wedding. So long trip, just got back last night. Working on our proposal for the new citizen science initiative connected with the cinema program. So we'll be continuing to do that. HamSCI looks like it'll have a something to do with that. Daniel and Christina are also involved. So back to net.
Okay. Next on the list is Franco, K4VZ. Go ahead, Franco.
Oh, first of all, I have a question for Dave since he just spoke. Is what is this blaze star that is supposed to blow up this month? I mean, at least is it hoax or true?
Who are you asking?
Yeah, Dave McGaw, since he's in astronomy. Because I was reading.
Are you talking about the possible nova?
Is that what they're talking about?
Yeah, there is a nova that they think is about to go through its brightening cycle, but I think one might say it's late.
Oh, okay.
But it's
Anyhow,
also
so
these things are very erratic. But yeah,
finicky.
we're hoping that
Yeah.
it'll become naked eyes shortly.
That'd be cool. Anyhow, so that's my question for the group. Back to you, Dave.
Okay. Next on the list is Bob in 5BRG.
Yeah, hello everybody. I've been soaking up my time on muon sensors so I could detect this nova when it goes off. But I'm writing software trying to transfer data from the muon detectors with which are using an Arduino over to a Pi so I can log the data and fighting issues like ran into a problem with I2C changing clock rates on a Pi, and I didn't know that that could happen. So I've switched over to SPI, and it's a little bit tricky. But anyway, that's causing me to pull the little side pieces of here I had left out. Anyway, back to you, Dave.
Okay. And let's see. I'm trying to make sure I don't skip somebody. Next on the list is Jamal. Go ahead.
Hello everyone. This week was very congested and victorious week. It witnessed the publication in a workshop in Egypt. Here in Egypt, it's called the radio and antennas propagation one. And this work was going to get one-to-one consistency checks for wireless networks optimization. And the second one, and this poster, the lovely one for me, it was published at the international, that's called the, sorry, again, I'm just writing it down. The international, okay, sorry. I'm trying to get the name. It's called the 10th workshop of the International Radio Occultation Working Group, the IROIC 10, that was held in Colorado, Boulder. Actually, and this was going to get the global navigation satellite system positioning optimization using particle swarm optimization, and this was an extension of my team's efforts at the NASA Space Apps 2022. So this week was very congested, but a victorious one.
Well, congratulations. So next on the list, I believe, is Gary, AF8A. Go ahead, Gary.
Good evening, Dave and the group. Hope everyone is doing well. I was outside the technical realm today a little bit, hanging around with a lot of lawyers and other people, listening to one of our Supreme Court justices speak here in Cleveland. So I had to stop and contemplate the value of a liberal arts education a little bit today. So that was kind of an interesting change of pace for me. I have been working on the HamSCI website a little bit, trying to bring the personal space weather station pages up to date. And I've got some questions on the RX-88 that perhaps we can get into after the roll call today. Thank you, Dave.
Okay. Next on the list is Joe, W7LUX. Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you, Dave. Good evening, all. The star system is a binarian called T Corona Borealis, and they're using data from 75 or 80 years ago, showing there was a dip in the light, and then after that, a certain time period, the nova erupted very dramatically, went from less than 10th magnitude to 2nd magnitude approximately. Anyway, a lot of us are watching that. I've got a spectrograph on the scope that unfortunately the thing is sinking into the sunset, and it's gone behind a tree for me. So I've got interference from that. I had a question for Bill, but I don't see him here. I've got a possible update for the GRAPE DRF. It's asking me if I want to do a system upgrade, and I'm not too sure. I want to get Bill's approval before I do something quite that drastic. Other than that, we've had big solar flare late last week, caused a big dip in the received signals, and kind of crunched the Route 66 event out here for a couple of hours, but everything's back to normal. Thank you, Dave.
Very good. Next on the list is Jonathan, KC3Y. Go ahead, Jonathan. Jonathan, are you there? It's muted.
Hi, everybody. Incidentally, when I go to hit the unmute button, the Zoom locks up. But anyway, it's been an interesting week for VLF. We had a tremendous solar flare. It was actually quite the whopper, and it created a really nice effect in VLF propagation. It enhanced it nicely, and I'll show a screenshot here of the NAA, and you can see. Whoops, there we go. So you can see the at the time the solar flare occurred, it caused an enhancement in propagation that increased signal levels to very close to what they would be at nighttime. It was quite a big flare. And where we just received a sudden impulse from the material that was ejected from that flare, the associated CME from that flare. We're just getting bombarded with the material now. I'm excited to see if it brings Whistler's and Dawn Chorus. The solar activity last week created some really nice Whistlers. I received a couple Whistlers last week, so it was actually quite impressive. But yeah, this is actually pretty big. The other VLF or other VLF transmitters also showed it, and but last week there was some weak solar storming, and what happened was there was a whoops. So last week there was some weak solar storming, and what happened was whoops. So the author of VLFRX Tools, Paul Nicholson, at his new VLF receiver his new VLF receiver location, observed some really nice effects. I just want to show them quick. Definitely worth it to the group. So the one of the first things was here, let me I meant to share with sound. Often with various VLF phenomena, there's you definitely have to share with sound. So there was some really nice dawn chorus. I just want to play a quick sample. So this was dawn chorus received without any power line hum filtering at all. There was no filtering needed because it was away from power line hum, and you could hear those high frequency tones, that those of the Russian alpha navigation system transmitters, but it actually sounds quite exquisite. A very nice dawn chorus event, and what's really cool about this is it happened at the same time that there was an auroral display, and that's like the VLF enthusiast's dream, is to listen to dawn chorus while you're watching a beautiful auroral display like this. So this was an image of the auroral display that was captured while the dawn chorus was captured. So that's like every VLF enthusiast's dream of a lifetime, and I hope to eventually get that. But he also took advantage of the radio quiet part of the site. Along with the whistlers that I received last week, he also received this very nice Whistler Echo Train. This is an Echo Train, so this is the initial Whistler, and these are the subsequent Whistlers, and you can see their frequency dispersion increases each time. So this was a really nice Echo Train that I unfortunately did not get at my location, but still a very nice observation. These pulses that you see, these are the pulses of the Alpha navigation system. He also looked at power line power line signals, and what was interesting is that this is 50 hertz, but you'll notice actually multiple traces. So the brightest trace is the 50 hertz from the UK grid, and then the other traces are 50 hertz from other grids like Ireland, Europe, things like that. So you can see that when you're studying power line systems with VLF, it's actually quite helpful, and you could actually see multiple power grids in this trace, which is really interesting. And what's even more interesting is, so this is a trace of 60 hertz received at his location in the UK. You can see that it's fairly weak, it's fairly diffuse. But then then the question is this from some generators running at 60 hertz? Because Paul mentioned that there were some generators at some farms nearby that could be running at 60 hertz. Is this from the U.S. grid? And so I was thinking that this is probably a signal from the Eastern grid. And what he can do is that he can take his VLF signal and my VLF signal and correlate them. And he can see if this signal actually correlates with my 60 hertz at my VLF receiver. So there's a lot of really cool stuff that you can do. And then lastly, since these E-field receivers, they're very microphonic. If you run a spectrum plot, you can see the mechanical resonance in the antenna around 1 hertz and around 3.5 hertz. So this is also very useful in understanding the mechanical resonance of your antenna. So yeah, a lot of really cool analysis, and a lot of good observations. Nathaniel, if there's time tonight, and I hope there is, I would like to discuss the roadmap of the VLF system project, if there's time. That's all I have. Back to the net.
Okay.
I just want to say those are really nice observations, Jonathan.
Yes.
And I think the idea of you correlating with the UK signal with your signal here, I think that's very interesting. And I'm very curious how that comes out.
Yeah, I may have to send Paul a sample of our spectrum, because the stream that's sent to a server, that's filtered for 60 hertz, but he might still be able to correlate nonetheless. It's filtered out, or well, it's somewhat filtered, but there's still it's like very low levels of 60 hertz. So yeah, well, I'll definitely reach out to him and see if it could be done.
Yeah,
Jonathan, North American power line frequencies are logged and recorded, so you could probably get that data.
Is there a place that I would be able to find that?
I'm not sure exactly offhand. I do know that there's a YouTube channel that shows these things during transients and shows exact frequencies. So I know they are being logged. It's probably something that's hard to do yourself, because you probably need a 3-phase feed to really do it accurately.
That's true. Yeah. It's definitely.
I know there are similar monitors for the UK power grid and for the European grids, which are racing against each other.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that, because I do know that there was a study, or there was a project from a university where they sent out, or it was a citizen science type of installation where these systems, which were basically VLF receivers disciplined to GPS, that were designed to specifically monitor the power grid.
Yeah, and that's, I think, what they were doing. The grids, at least in North America, are large enough that if you have monitors around even different parts of the same grid, like the Northeastern connection, you can detect by how fast the phase ripples move and where they move. You can detect where disturbances happen on the grid. It was pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it's that would definitely be a very good application for a distributed VLF network.
Yeah, and I think for what you're doing, you probably need continuous access to this source, so for things like this in the future. I'll go try to find it for you.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay, well, let's finish the list. Next, Majid, did I call on you?
Not yet, but
Okay, go ahead, Majid.
not much to report. But hi everyone, like TUNET.
Okay, next on the list is, I've already called him Michael, so no Pettit. Go ahead.
Greetings to everyone. Don't have much to report other than the magnetometers are still going here.
Very good. Next on the list would be Phil Karn, K9Q. Go ahead, Phil.
Hey, good. I still have my mic unmuted here. Okay, I got a local meeting here at 7 o'clock my time, so I'll be leaving shortly. I haven't done a whole lot. I haven't pushed out too much recently, although I redid the RFAGC in KNIQ radio for the RS888 recently, and I'd like some feedback on that. Rather than moving incrementally, I now just compute, okay, how far do I need to go to get into the middle of the desired range and then make a change in one fell swoop. The only problem with that is that if the gains are not properly calibrated, there's a possibility of, going unstable. You can't have your poles outside the unit circle. So on this, I would like it if people who have RF generators and are willing to spend some time on this, do some gain calibrations of the RS888. I saw some evidence that the gain might not actually be as calibrated on the upper end of the VGA gain scale. So if anybody's got some time is willing to look at this, I'd really appreciate it. Try different levels of gain, frequency, and attenuation, and see whether they track as calibrated. That's about it for here.
Okay. Next on the list is Paul Elliott. Go ahead, Paul.
Okay, hi. Yeah, I've been kind of overworked and slightly burned out. I'm in Friday Harbor for just a few more days, and I've been trying to get some stuff, built and get ready for deployment. I've got all the boards, but I've got 3 completed Whisper sondes, just like this, and ready to build some more, but this guy's ready to go. I've been building filters. To assemble the filters, I decided to use my pick and place machine, which is kind of a bear to set up, but I did it. I have to hand place the inductors, but the capacitors, which all look identical, no identifying marks or anything. So if I do it by hand and I make a mistake, it's, kind of painful to figure out and correct. But once I get the pick and place, everything in the right, all the feeders in the right spot, and I got it all programmed. And I had to write a computer program to convert from various netlist and bill of material formats to what the pick and place machine needed. Anyway, it's working well.
Yes.
So that really helps me. And building some filters for the WW0WWV installation. That's got one of the early Whisper sondes there, and going to try to set them up so they can do 6 meters and or 17 and or 12 meters, some combination depending on what kind of antenna they can put up. So that's I don't know. Sure, there's other stuff too, but that's been kind of top of mind. So that's where I sit. And back to Nat.
Okay. Next on the list. Oh, I believe I haven't skipped anybody, but we have Tom Yarnish usually doesn't want to talk.
I'm here.
Yep. Do you have any comments?
No, I just want to say hello to the group. I'm a fly on the wall these days. I maintain a Kiwi and a 888 for Rob for development and so on. So been preoccupied with other matters here in the last several weeks, and just happy to be flying the wall in this group. Really interesting stuff, and I'll let it go at that. Thanks.
Okay. And I think we're next to Rob Robinette. Rob,
Sorry, yes, I'm here. I'm sorry. I was doing some parts binning here. It's cleaning up. I have been focused mostly working with Glenn N6GN to help him in his work with his active antenna, the active dipole project. And he's uncovered a few little bugs in Whisper Demon and is used of the 888. Glenn has uncovered some RF design problems with the 888. One of which is that it leaks its clock, even the internal clock, the 27 megahertz, leaks out pretty severely and is quite visible up in his installations. So that's not a problem that I've seen at the KPH and KFS sites, where there's a bunch of distribution amps ahead of the 888s. But others may see that problem. And Glenn is also working with the 888 at 128 megasamples. So he's doing a lot of he's stressing the systems in ways that most sites aren't. One of the problems is he didn't, I think, appreciate it, and I want to reemphasize. He was running his 888, one of his 888s at 64 megasamples, and had no low pass filter in front of it, and it's severely degraded the receive sensitivity, even though there aren't a lot of signals between 30 and 60 megahertz. They fold down and become increased noise levels and QRM for the 0 to 30 megahertz region. So pulse filter is absolutely essential to anyone who's using the 888 at its use normal frequencies. So the 64 megasample. I think there's only one or two other sites that are using the 888 at its full 128. It definitely, you have to have a B-Link or a high performance CPU. The i5 6500s that many Whisper Demon sites use just cannot keep up with the data stream when you go to 128. They do for a while, but they fall behind and so on. So we're learning more about it, and again, the goal is to make a whole receive system, the antenna system and everything, and cabling and so on, so that it's easy for citizen scientists, HamSCI sites, to deploy a antenna system that gives them access to the noise floor of their QTH. And that noise floor is, can be quite a bit better than you would imagine. One way to measure this, I mentioned last week, to measure your noise floor is to use Glenn's field probe antenna system. And I have today, for the first time, ordered something from one of those, a batch of 5 of those from JLPCB. So in the next week or two, I'll have some of those. They are most useful with things like the Tiny SA, where you can walk around with them. They're unbalanced output, battery powered, and battery and you know, with an SMA output. So they're much less useful in normal installations. They might be difficult to use in a regular installation. But anyway, that's what's available. And if, I know some of you had expressed interest in them. Once I get them and can verify they work, maybe I don't know if I don't know how long this takes. Maybe in a couple weeks I'll have some, and I can offer them to those of you who at least have 4 of them. That if they're all work, 4 of them that would be surplus for me, so others can use them. There, I think it's about $50 each assembled and delivered cost for each one. So that's my current project, along with, you know, maintaining Whisper Demon and supporting people. Back to net.
Okay. Now, did I miss anybody? Hearing none, I'm going to say I called the roll and we're open for general discussion.
That sounds great. I think a really good thing to talk about, if no one else has any objections, is to talk about the overall deployment plan for Daisy 2, because we have Gary on the line here, and I know Gary has been collecting, he's been soliciting sites for the Daisy 2 project, so he could give us some sort of insight regarding that. And then that could, we could have a discussion about how many and which sites we might deploy to. And then I might also be able to pull up the budget document and see if I can adjust it to within the new parameters. See how that goes too. I'm not sure that I can do that tonight, but I might be able to. How does that sound, Dave?
That sounds good.
Great. So Gary, how are you tonight? I think you're muted.
Yep, I am.
He's
Thank you.
shocked.
Good evening. Doing well. No, you know how it is. You're flipping screens. That's what happens.
Yeah.
So far as yeah, the efforts I put into trying to find some host stations have been pretty minimal. One, because we didn't have a good description of the hardware and all what would be going into the system. So I can only give people kind of a cursory overview. And yeah, we still had at least 20 or 30 people respond. I've got a file of up in one of the HamSCI Google Drives. Most of these people have come in through the HamSCI website. Probably seen the banner at the top or saw a notice in the HamSCI Google group. So as I say, the effort so far has been pretty rudimentary. I haven't made any effort to target certain parts of the country because I know we want these things fairly well distributed, mostly over the lower 48. And I think a lot of effort's going to have to go into that. Once I think we've got a good enough website that we can show people, say, hey, this is what we want you to be able to put together and use, or what we can supply. And these are the criteria for your station and the things we need you to, so far as being quiet and putting your magnetometer far from the house and what kind of antenna you might use and so on and so forth. So like I say, most of the people who stepped up now did so a little bit in the blind, but that's one of the reasons I want to get the website going before the first of the year, the personal space weather station website cleaned up.
That sounds really good. Yeah.
Nathaniel, I had a question whether the grant included any mention of what I know you had mentioned or raised as an issue before, which was a standardized antenna that might be, you know, a baseline at these installations. What initially comes to mind is Glenn's antenna. He has this cool, you know, 2 across in effect, that is designed to work with a dual ADC receiver. And then, of course, you know, I can imagine a given site having more than one antenna, perhaps even to compare the second or third or fourth antenna to that baseline. But does your grant include a reference antenna for each site?
Well, we have here's the original budget. The answer is both yes and no. Um, the answer is yes, we have included nominally $350 per station for an antenna. The answer is, and that number we got from looking at, yeah, we said we would use this. Okay, so that's what we said we would use. So yes, this would work as a reference antenna. The question is, do we really want to go with this one, or do we want to do something different? We are trying to cut the budget right now. Or we're required to cut the budget. We have to cut the budget by, I think, a total of about 10% altogether. And I'm starting to look at how to do that. But that's
well, regarding that, it makes me I'm thinking DX Engineering is not the cheapest shop on the block. And Glenn's antenna design is probably, I dare say, one that it's fairly advanced because it is designed to feed two independent ADCs, but I think that are coherent, and so you can do a lot of analysis with the two different orientations. But also, I think I expected it to be cheaper. Anyway,
I think, maybe if we design our own, we might be able to do it cheaper, which
yeah, done oneself, it is a lot cheaper than what they're selling it for.
655.
What was that, Dave?
Hold on.
It can be a lot cheaper.
Yeah, $350 is a lot for an antenna.
There are many designs out there, both for the loop and for the E-field antenna preamps.
Now,
if we come up with a circuit board and we can point people at it, give them a parts list.
I went through it this morning. It's not that trivial. I needed Glenn to walk me through because there were two parts that JLPCB didn't have anymore. So
it's always the risk.
And apparently that's pretty common. But his Field Pro design is about, I'm sure, it's really about the same cost as his fully balanced antenna that he's working on, dipole, vertical dipole, active dipole. It'll be about the same cost. So it's the electronics part of it is like $50, and it's Cat 5. It's not coax because it's a balance system, and the vertical elements, he's found a pole, fiberglass RV pole that's 5 meters tall for $35. So it looks like the total, BOM cost of that antenna, if people can put one up that tall, would be on the order of, $125, $150. But that may be too difficult for many people to put up a 23-foot antenna. That's going to require a little guying because there's an active.
Maybe we're not talking about the same antenna, though. The antenna that I'm referring to is just a simple cross that has two preamps.
I don't think,
and that feeds each of two ADCs. And if the radio itself has the capacity to manage that,
I don't think. I think you should talk to Glenn.
It would work
about
as a single. It would work for a single ADC receiver, but it would also work for a dual ADC receiver.
I don't think that's the one that he would recommend, Michael. I don't think.
Well,
I mean, right now you've got the single ADC receiver, the 888. I mean, are there other receivers that this antenna is likely to be feeding? I mean, what's available?
Yes, we hope so.
Okay, within this time frame.
Yeah, Nathaniel, which antenna was that of DX Engineering?
Okay. Hold on.
It's a remotely preamplified. It's about 7 feet tall. I use one of those on field day every year, but the webpage says ordered two and only 7 left. So I'm not sure if it's going out of production itself.
Yeah,
It
it's
just says 7 left in stock.
So yeah,
They-
I
I think they've been making preamplifiers like this for a number of
so I'm
years.
trying to get the part number.
So the nice thing about this particular, I can put
What's the
this in
part number?
I'll just put the
Go
link in
back.
the chat.
Thank you.
Here you go.
But it's a short element. It's not a 23-foot element.
No,
Well,
like I say, it's like 7 or 8 feet.
Well, the Glenn's active dipole, the field probe is, you can make them, you can make the elements any length you want. The longer, if you have a quiet site and you want to get down to the ITU noise floor at 30 megahertz, you need about 7 meters. With anything short of nitrogen cooled RF amplifiers. So. It's the physics.
It's an
of
8-foot element. It's equivalent to what we've used in the past as a CB width.
Yeah, that was. But these unbalanced antennas are very subject to RFI ingress and ground loop ingress. So that's what I've been battling at every site is the. They work great if you battery power them and put your receiver out there at the antenna. But if you actually run a coax into your shack, your coax, in spite of all of the balance and toroids you put on it, your coax becomes a large part of your antenna at many frequencies. So
well, there are ways to choke it and balun it, and transformer couple it, and all that.
Well, all right. Who's going to be the one in charge of walking everybody, installing every one of those steps for their particular situations?
It's what we do.
Well, Michael, how is it? Are you getting?
How you do? Yeah. How are you doing with you're trying to make it work, Michael?
I mean, you guys need to have, what's the term? Minimum acceptable outcome, or I don't know. There's a term for that in marketing and product development. Don't let the best be the enemy of the good and all that. So what is reasonably achievable if you're not going to have, a few experts have to go around from site to site and tweak things.
So
you're not going to get, how many of those perfect sites are you going to be able to develop?
Well, one thing I do know in doing projects roughly like this for a different industry was we did a thing called a site survey just to make sure that we weren't wasting a lot of money to make sure it would work. And one thing I do know is you cannot ask the average ham the question, how quiet is my QTH? And get an honest, subjective answer.
Yes.
I mean, people don't know how bad their sites are, really. They really don't.
So one advantage with going with this DX engineering antenna that we see here is that it is production ready, it is tested, it has documentation, it's supported. If there are any, we just ship it and people can just follow the instructions, and it has support beyond what we have to offer.
Yep, I think I agree that's a big advantage to something like that.
Yeah. Also, I did some tweaking of the budgets, and I don't want to 100% commit to this at the moment, but just from kind of doing some tweaking, I think we can likely make this work if we cut the number of deployed stations from 30 to say 25. And if I put slightly reduced effort on this grant, which should be okay because I have other grants that also got awarded at the same time, which will take care of me. So I think if instead of just we could probably keep these same numbers. If instead of doing 30, we do like 25. And maybe what we say for the initial run, maybe we even start by just saying, okay, year one, let's just try to get 20 stations deployed and then see how the budget's going. Or even start with like 15, maybe start with 15 stations year one, see how all that works. And then if that all works, get another 15 on the year two. And if we do it if we kind of roll it out a few stations at a time, some sites may need more money, some sites may need less, because some hams may be like, oh, I don't know, they have GPS antennas already, or they don't need something. But if we start doing only 15 or 20 stations year one, that might help us to keep the budget in check.
So remind me which frequencies you're trying to receive with this antenna.
So that particular antenna,
Everything.
well, no, not everything. We're trying to do the HF band, from 160, ideally 160 meters up through 10 meters.
Okay.
Basically
Okay.
2 to 30 megahertz.
Yeah.
And 50 megahertz could be a added perk, but not necessary for this.
So we're trying to get 20 to 25 of these stations are supposed to have 3 things at the same place: a ground magnetometer assembly, a whisper demon grape receiver, and a VLF receiver. They're all supposed to be at the same location. The Whisper Demon Grape is supposed to cover the HF. That uses the DX engineering system. The VLF system is supposed to use Jonathan's custom E-field antenna and aluminum mast.
Okay.
Okay.
In looking at the board, they look the same as that old Clifton Labs antenna, which had some hardware issues, which it'd be good to know if they fixed.
Yeah.
I mean,
and now
you ought to test one. Their other Clifton design was horrible implementation of the other the Clifton design I use.
I saw the schematic with the cascaded chokes that were on the other one.
Yeah.
That were. I mean, you look at the schematic and you bash your head against the wall, asking why they did that. What they're doing, what one of the other Clifton designs had was a 3-terminal voltage regulator followed by a inductor with no bypass capacitor. You know what that does, don't you?
And it did. It oscillated it oscillated out of the factory at 100 kilohertz.
Nice oscillator.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with harmonics up through about 7 megahertz, and DX Engineering didn't even know it. They didn't even believe it when I told them to go take a look at it. They didn't bother to look. I said, we have 5 of these you've delivered to us. They all oscillated 100 kilohertz.
Yeah, yeah, I mean,
just be careful. Anyway, my point is, I don't trust DX engineering, and nor not only their technical skill, but their customer support. Left me not wanting to buy anything from them anymore. So
Rob, Tom here. Remember, SV1AFN has a very similar but much better engineered amplifiers.
That's what I replaced. Yeah, I replaced the DX engineering with the SV1AFN, which is well engineered and has been in service for 3 years now. The DX engineering one nearly burned up the KPH.
Really?
Because they didn't put any heat sinking on that. In addition to the choke on the output of the 3-terminal regulator, they had no heat dissipation on the tab.
Well, it'd be good to get one of them and tear the damn thing apart. I mean,
yeah, go take a look at it before you order 10 or 15 of those things, Nathaniel.
I looked for the schematic online, and my cursory glance has not revealed anything. But
they do show the circuit board in their instructions, but it's not very high resolution.
Right.
It's a relatively simple design.
Right, and if you notice the 2 chokes in the upper right corner of the one design, that was exactly the same thing that oscillated on on the ones that Rob had. So, I mean, it looks almost the same, but I don't know that it is. But
Well,
I mean, it
maybe we
almost
can
looks
make
like
a transmitter out of it.
well, yeah. I mean, yeah. I would certainly get one of these before you get 25 of them.
The other thing I'm noticing is that it's talking about continuous versus intermittent use, which makes me really nervous.
Ooh.
So
it says to power it directly if you're going to be using it for VLF or using it for continuous use.
What does that even mean? Oh,
it means a direct wire power to it rather than using
Oh,
the over the coax.
oh, a giant loop, ground loop antenna there. Well, that sounds
Indeed.
like
Okay, so what they're saying, is the power inserter is probably not suitable for VLF, which I could believe.
It's not
I mean,
suitable for VLF, and it's not suitable for continuous use.
Well,
it's under designed.
Okay.
I mean,
Rob, this is not rocket science. That we've done this in the field for decades, so we do it all the time.
Is there a particular antenna that is coming up as being recommended by does someone on here have a particular antenna that they recommend right now?
that's already, you can just go out and whip out your credit card and buy.
Or something
Rob,
that
you're talking about a balanced antenna, right? One of the requirements would preferentially be a balanced antenna, right?
well, it sure is a lot easier to cancel out noise.
A single vertical whip in a relatively quiet environment.
Well, okay, so even if we can't just go out and buy, we can reasonably make and fabricate and build kits and distribute to people and support with a reasonable effort.
I suspect.
I've made a note to. I mean, we build these all the time, but for lower frequency ranges. But the designs are out there, and we could easily come up with one, either designing our own or collecting one from out there. Trying to remember the name. There's someone who's done a very nice loop.
There's a Norwegian one that has some really good stuff too.
The K9AY loop. Is that the one you're thinking of?
K9AY. Well, that goes back decades, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But I mean, that's an antenna, not an antenna system. That's just a.
Yeah.
Right. I like the flag antennas too.
Right. But I mean, you'd need an amplifier anyway for the 888s or something, a lot of things similar. But what's the Norwegian guy?
The LZ1AQ.
Could be.
That's the one I'm thinking of.
The LZ one. I have one of those.
All those
loop antennas are pretty deaf above 10 megahertz.
Well, right, but
they don't.
No, that's not true.
If they're
I'm using one up to the 25 megahertz at WWV. Receives it quite well.
I was thinking that he made stuff and sold stuff, but I don't see it. I thought he made.
I'm trying to find. I've got the page up somewhere, and I'm trying to find it.
Well, it's true that there's no schematic provided with this DX engineering.
And active small magnetic loop. There we are.
They have like
LC1AQ. I've got his
15-page instruction manual and no schematic.
Well, that's the way it is these days.
They show pictures of the board.
But my original question, Nathaniel, was really kind of related to the point that you raised several weeks ago, I think in one of our sessions, which was about having a standard antenna. And so, what would the characteristics of that antenna be that we might use, for instance, to decide which one of the various options that are out there would be ideal for this particular project? It's got to be deployable for 35 sites or 25 sites. It has to be cheap. It has to be cheaper than $350. It has to be something that's relatively easy to maintain and to debug and to fix if it breaks. And it has to provide a fairly good coverage from through the HF range, ideally up to at least 30 megahertz. And if it can extend up to 50, but those are some of the basic characteristics. And if we can standardize that, then that provides a search criteria for what antenna we want to use.
I completely agree with that. I see Clint just put in the
Yeah, I was looking for the schematic. I mean, I don't think Clifton Labs sells the whip anymore. I don't think they're even around. Didn't their project line get bought?
DXE, I thought DX Engineering bought the
Yeah.
project, and that schematic for the Clifton, the Galley 74 design that I bought from them was, I think, unmodified from what Clifton did. So I think that the oscillating power supply came from Clifton, and DX Engineering didn't even look at it, never even looked at the spectrum that came out of their amplifier. And
Yeah.
I just, by the way, I just posted LZ1AQ's site. He does sell them off of his site.
Yeah.
If we want to evaluate it.
Those are probably that's a pretty good choice.
Is there one or two people here who would be willing to do a survey of kind of different antenna options and present them to this group in an organized manner?
I would certainly like to be involved.
Yeah.
Or can
Would
we
the fact that this guy is Norwegian be a problem, Nathaniel?
Not necessarily.
Not in this case. He doesn't have to be an American vendor.
I'm uncertain. Let me put it this way: if it's the right option, let's consider it, and then we can try to answer that question.
Yeah.
Good.
LZ1AQ is Australian.
Well, one of the other things to remember about e-field whips is, if you are relatively close to an AM broadcast station, there's nothing you can do.
That's not true.
Well,
I do it all the time.
Well, I mean for LF, yes, you can. But
No.
well, let's see here.
I do preamps 100 kilohertz to in our case 5 megahertz, right next to AM broadcast stations, and I notch them out.
Yeah.
Okay. That is truly impressive, because I know what the LC is required to notch it out. I mean, you're talking about
it's 10 kilohertz bandwidth notch. It's not hard.
Well, I mean, you're talking about in the front end before the
right at the loop. I use loop antennas.
Okay,
and
so
I put a notch right at.
So are there any?
I said whip. I said whip. Not
are there any? Would any of you be willing to either yourself or work with someone else to come up with a?
I'm certainly involved in doing that. Working with Glenn on his design is what I plan to put it out at KFS. So I'm not very good at producing documentation, so I would want to have some help on that. But I do have a site where I can go and test things. I can go out to KFS and deploy them and compare them. In fact, that's what I intended to do. Really what I want to focus on now is going out to KFS and comparing different receive antennas against the commercial, the TCI 530s and such that they have there, to see how the performance compares. And it's a quiet site.
Yeah.
So it's a good test site. So I'm willing, certainly willing to be part of that. And
we should probably have noisy sites as well. I mean, whatever design we come up with, hopefully can function.
Daniel,
I've
been known to be good at documentation.
Okay, Rob. So then, would Rob, Michael, and David be willing to be on a little subcommittee?
As long as Clint will participate.
And Clint too.
Clint with a little bit of input, sure.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that you could put together is like a PowerPoint presentation that gives us a few different options. Yeah. And I think I think it was Michael really hit on some of the main requirements here. It needs to be deployable. It needs to be standardized. It needs to be, I would say moderate cost. And we had budgeted $350. So let me just show you what the budget that we're working with here is. So if what we originally budgeted, if we just say we're going to deploy 25 of these instead of 30 of them, and we keep all the other numbers of the same, we say that we had $350 budgeted for the antenna. Altogether $1245 for the Whisper Demon system.
Mhm.
That does not include the so that did not include, let me try to split this up a little bit better, because well, I think this 300, we can get into those nitty-gritties later. I think staying under $350 for the antenna is smart for this. I think we should try to stay under $350 for the antenna.
And but that's just the antenna itself. You
That's
put in
antenna and preamp.
Yeah.
Antenna system.
Yeah, and antenna system. There's
Okay.
separate. We had separately budgeted for RG6 coax.
Yeah.
We had separately budgeted for some coaxial cables and adapters. So
Yeah. Okay.
but
Okay.
I
well,
think roughly just for the antenna itself, $350.
Oh,
Okay,
Nathaniel?
Yeah. And if there's something that we're like, okay, this is really the antenna we need, and it needs to be a little bit more money, you know, maybe we can figure out how to adjust the budget to make that work. Maybe we end up, you know, cutting somewhere else. Maybe we end up deploying less stations. There are things we can play with, but I think this is a good target number.
Nathaniel?
Yeah.
Yeah, regarding budget and Whispersond, I probably shouldn't admit this, but I see I must have given you $670 on that. Right now I've got it on my website at $600. So that's like a 12% discount right there.
Thank you.
So, now it doesn't help you with the rest of that crap there on that list, but you know, for what it's worth, I think I can let them go for
well, our
600.
goal, the goal for this, the real goal for this grant is to field as many sites as we possibly can, with the money we've been given, and to run the grant as efficiently as possible. So, you know, if we're able to do more sites than we did, or if we're able to do the original 30 at a 10% cost, at a 10% reduction, and we're able to meet the original grant, you know, even with that budget reduction, you know, then fantastic. But I feel like if we fielded 25 and with the budget reduction, I'd say we're still winning. So yeah, so these are but our goal really is to field as many as possible. And I can tell you with the grape 1 and 2 grants, I think those, you know, we fielded many more grape 1s than the original grant ever said we would field. So
Yeah.
you know.
Well, you have pretty padded numbers there.
Yeah.
I mean, the B links don't cost 300 and whatever, and you know they'll be less than that. So it's
yeah, and we get to purchase things tax free too.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, well, that's okay. Well, that saves us 10%. That's a 10% right there.
There you go.
You know.
So, yeah.
Is that American?
Well, yeah. So if you're buying from, these things are all purchased by the University of Scranton, for research purposes, and so we have a tax exempt certificate.
Oh.
So.
Okay. Well, if you want,
we don't even have to worry about that. We don't have a sales tax.
Well, then we're gonna make you order and all
dear.
of the stuff, David.
So I think I'll be talking to Majid and Jonathan about this, but I think what I want to do is try to consolidate, you know, do all the integration and shipping from Scranton, and try to have some students involved. And I need to talk to both Majid and Jonathan about that separately to figure out how we would do those logistics, but kind of how Case Western did the Grape 2 shipping. I'm hoping that Scranton can, handle the integration and shipping of this. So
Well, anyway, if you want to use the DX engineering as one alternative, although I if you want to order one, I'd be happy to put it up and test it out here as
why don't we
part of
see?
the
Let's get an initial recommendation from you and from Clint and David and Michael. Let's either next week or the week after. Let's see what some different options are and see what your recommendations really would be. And then let's go from there.
Okay, well, if maybe we should set up a separate Zoom call around antennas.
Yeah, make it at least 2 weeks because I'm traveling next week.
Okay.
Okay. Well, then it's a couple of weeks from now. Let's have a meeting separate from this where we talk about it, and maybe by then I'll have a little more experience and maybe even have something deployed out at KFS to start with.
Michael, would you be interested in chairing the committee?
I will try to herd the two cats.
Oh, thank
Rob
you,
and
Michael.
Dave.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this will be very helpful because I think a lot of the other hardware is fairly well, accepted, but I do think there's a lot of questions around what.
I'm glad you appreciate that because I think it's the biggest problem in this whole.
I agree.
Is getting a good deployable, repeatable,
yes,
antenna system.
I agree.
I mean, we've, it's been a challenge for me in every site.
Yeah.
So that'd be good. By the way, just while you're still here, and I don't know if Majid is still here, I signed up. I do have my authorization to be part of Scranton, but I don't have the apparently somebody's supposed to call me about VPNing, setting up the VPN. So I can access Majid's Whisper Demons at your university site. So there's apparently a second stage to this.
I'm having an appointment on Wednesday to do the same.
Well, there's the first stage of this, Michael, is to get yourself a account as being, an author, like a student-like account with them. But there's a second stage where somebody gives you the VPN client and sets you up for the client, and that hasn't happened. And I don't know. I wasn't told if I should reach out to anyone about that VPN stage of it.
Yeah,
if
if you've been waiting a few days and you haven't heard from them, just email tech support at scranton.edu again and remind them or inquire what the steps are. Because the people who do the VPNing, they're going to be like a more advanced team than the people who do the standard onboarding.
Well, Chad was a nice guy and very able. It took 20 minutes and we were done.
Oh, yeah. No, Chad is very good, but I don't think he's the same person that actually goes and adjusts the VPN profiles.
Yes, that's what I gather. He implied that. So
yeah.
Well, maybe I'll wait, Michael. Once you're done, maybe we could even see if we could do this at the same time, so they don't have to repeat, and we can both go through the process.
Yeah, and even Majid too, because Majid, you haven't used the VPN yet, have you?
No.
So actually, all three of you can actually try to work on it together because you should all have the same access. And I did put in a ticket. I know there's an active ticket where I said that all three of you should have the same access. And I can.
It'd be great if they could give us a little walled garden VPN someplace on your.
Yes, and they will do that.
That's good.
They will do that, and they will be able to give you a static IP addresses that once you connect to the VPN, you'll be able to SSH to those static IP addresses.
Okay. Well, it's fine. That part of it isn't as important. Is that?
Yeah.
I mean, if
I have a question, Rob.
yes,
You send me the Ubuntu. So should I go ahead and install that?
yes.
I don't need any, initial change requirements.
There's nothing. If you notice that, I strongly recommend you download and install the Ubuntu 24 server version. Do not put in a desktop version. And it's pretty much standard. They don't have to do anything special during the install process. So the next stage will be to I don't know if you're familiar with the use of Git or Git clone to install software from the GitHub site, but that's I can walk you through that process. It's all done on a terminal, sessions. So you're SSHing in. There's no GUI here involved. It's all. So you have to be familiar with that. The use of terminals.
Okay.
So I can walk you through it. It's not, it's not that, well, of course, it's hard for me. I've been programming in Linux for, 40 years. So it's or Unix at least for 40 years. So it's hard for me to, I try to put myself in the position of someone who's, this is unfamiliar territory, but I do think it can be pretty simple. Just to you start with typing a few commands.
Oh yeah, sure. I could do that.
Okay.
I work a little bit with Raspberry Pi and.
Well, okay. Well, it's the Pi, and you open a terminal window and type.
Yeah, I think it should be the same. But
Okay, yes, it's very much the same. Pi is a Linux computer. It's derived from Debian, and so it's like Ubuntu. So
I did
Got to
order
sign off
those-
now.
okay.
So
Okay.
talk to you guys later,
Hey,
unless you
Paul,
have something for me.
Paul, I was
Yeah.
sent you a note about you wanted remote access to WWV.
I still want to do that.
And when you're free, I figured
Yeah.
you were really busy, and that was
Yeah,
why you
I
didn't
am.
respond. Okay,
I
so
am, and I haven't been ghosting you. I want it. I need to do it, and I want to do it.
I
but
know
I haven't gotten around to it yet.
That's no problem. It's just that I hadn't heard from you. At our age, when somebody disappears and doesn't respond for a few days, you start to think, "Uh-oh," because there been something happened.
Yeah, no such luck. I just been ignoring you.
That's okay. I much prefer being ignored.
All right.
For the
You guys,
alternatives.
unless somebody needs me for something, I'm going to bail. So
okay, take care,
Thanks.
Paul.
guess
Okay,
not. Okay, thanks, guys.
Yeah, Rob, Majid, and Michael, I just replied to the Royal IT Tech support ticket that has all of your names on it. I CC'd all of you on there.
Okay.
If you could reply to them and give them your R number, so Majid knows what this is, and I apologize for spelling your name incorrectly in the email, Majid. I wrote it quickly the other day. And then and Rob, you have your R number now.
Yes, I
right?
do.
And Michael, you do not have an R number yet, right? What's that? You're looking at me like, what's an R number?
You're muted, Michael.
Yes, I think I do have an R number.
You
That
do
was the
have it.
number I gave them when I set up the appointment and everything.
Okay,
and
great.
and I'll be talking to them on Wednesday.
Okay, wonderful. So you can reply to the email with the R number, and then you also have to give the MAC address of the computer or computers you're going to be connecting from.
Okay.
Okay. So they need both of that information to put into the VPN. So that email I just sent you, that is the email that you need to get onto the VPN.
That's gonna dig up the MAC address of my desk. I've been thinking about switching my desktop I better be careful.
And then the next thing, then after you give them that information, the next thing you need to ask them for is the Ivanti Secure Access, the Ivanti Secure Access client. So ask them after you give them information, ask them, how do I connect to this VPN? And then hopefully they can give you instructions on how you actually connect to it.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm
And
told
with all of this information, I think I have a future in the national security or CIA or something.
and
right?
and I'm told in 6 months they're changing to a different VPN system. So
Oh, good.
Of course.
Yeah,
Go
Dartmouth
through it all
keeps
again.
changing.
yeah. So we'll
Wow.
see what the future holds, but this is what happens for now.
By the way, guys, I just got notice that KP has just hit 7. We've got a pretty good geomagnetic storm going on.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the NOAA radio communications dashboard seems to be a bit behind though.
I have to show you. Here's how the baby looks right now. See if I can turn off.
Out of
the-
focus.
Yeah.
And-
Rather
There's a baby.
Oh, there's.
Oh, the baby is very sleepy right now.
Oh,
So yeah.
Can we sign him? Can we sign him up for the antenna subcommittee?
Sure, Danielle would be happy to be on the antenna subcommittee.
I'm sure we've all functioned as antennas.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, that sounds good. Jonathan, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Jonathan, it's after 10, but if you want, maybe we can go over to a different Zoom room or something and chat for a couple minutes.
Yeah, sure. Sure.
Okay.
That's fine.
I'll do that and
we can certainly all leave and let you have it.
Yeah, I think
All
we're
right,
pretty talked out.
all right. Well, I will I'll say 7-3 to everyone then. Thank you very much for a great evening.
Okay.
And I look forward to hearing from our I'm grateful to our antenna subcommittee. I look forward to hearing your report.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Good night.
Okay.
Later.
Bye.
Good night.